Hey everyone, thank you for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started here on today's webinar, how to optimize your digital marketing and website during COVID-19 and beyond. So if you have any questions on today's webinar, feel free to put those in the question box on the right-hand side. We're going to reserve about 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A with our two subject matter experts today. So don't hesitate to throw those questions in there and we'll get to them at the end. Just a few housekeeping items. If you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, whichever social media channel you like. And just a reminder to you all to check out our community.solutionreach.com for any support-related questions that you may have, and you'll click on My Support there. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. We're super excited to have two subject matter experts today, and Rand Schulman's going to kick us off. And as we all know, the last couple months have been crazy, and we've all had to adapt and do new things. And so we went out to some of our partners and said, hey, who can we talk to provide some subject matter expert content here during this COVID epidemic that we're in? And so we reached out to DM Score, and I want to introduce Rand, who's going to talk to us a little bit about your digital marketing in the dental industry today through the scope of COVID-19 on some things. So Rand is one of the pioneers of digital analytics, taking several companies public. Palo Alto-based DM Score is built by a team of analytic pioneers from Adobe Analytics and backed by investors from FICO, and Andy Jennings, the former FICO chief analytics officer, is on their board. And DM Score is like a credit score for your practice's online presence by analyzing your practice's website results from search engines like Google and online directories like Yelp and ZocDoc. DM Score algorithm comprehensively can tell you how your practice stacks up against others in your local area, and they can give you actionable recommendations to improve your scores, and can then connect you with DM Score vetted partners to address the recommendations. So like a FICO score, local DM scores are constantly changing based on new data. So we're super excited to have Rand here. And Rand, can you hear me okay?
Oop.
Yes, can you hear me, Rand?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Rand.
Hi.
We're going to turn the reins over to you and have you get started.
Okay, just a little perfunctory sound test. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, thanks Solutionreach, thanks Mike for inviting me here today, and thanks for your introduction. We have some pretty important information, I think, to pass on to you, and we're very, very happy to be partnering with Solutionreach. You've all heard my background in digital marketing, and you know, I've been working with various teams, various companies for a long time to make it really easy to understand. So what we're going to talk about today is what is DM Score, why it's important, why it's most important in the post COVID-19 era. So if we could move on to the next slide. So, okay, so what is DM Score? Well, DM Score reliably measures your digital marketing performance so that you can take action in these three marketing areas: search, paid search, and directories. You can see on your screen right now, right in the middle of the screen, that's what our interface looks like. And you can see next to search, there's a 91, and you can see next to paid search, there's a 99, and next to directories, there's a 35. Those numbers are out of a range of 1 to 100. So on a regular basis, we collect data on 54,000 dental practices across the nation, and each of these practices are in your local area. We collect this data from hundreds of sources, and just like a FICO score, we've created a DM score, which varies depending on your competition at what time. Could we move on to the next slide, please? So this DM score will allow you to see your competition in an area. You can see your online presence to anyone in your area. As this slide shows, Western Dental is #1 with an overall DM score of 74 at the very top. And at the bottom, you can see Children's Dental Fun Zone. They have a low DM score of 57. Now, here's some really interesting statistics. They're super interesting to us. Recent DM score study of these 54,000 dentists revealed that too few dentists optimize their practices' marketing efforts. Okay, write this down. Nationwide, 71% of dentists have a Yelp profile, but 20% of these profiles are unclaimed by the practice itself. 20%. So you all know that businesses that claim their profiles can exert more control over the way their business is perceived and their digital footprint. So that's a really quick tip. Go out there and claim your profile. 33% of dental sites had poor organic search results, resulting in a lower visibility and business loss. Now catch this. The highest ranking in a Google search was not better than the 20th page. Okay, that's search. So what I just talked about right there is our directory score. So go to dmscore.com, go to the Solutionreach marketplace page, go to your DM score and check out what your directory score is. Go check out your search score. And then there's the urgency of doing this right now. There's a gorilla in the room, and the gorilla in the room with the independent practices is the DSO. Also, you can check out our research on DSOs. And it shows that the large DSO networks, on average, are 20 times more effective in reaching local markets than individual practices. 60% of non-DSO practices have DM scores under 30. Only 1.5% of loan practices score a DM score of 70 or higher. The numbers get much better when you build larger multi-unit practices or move to a DSO. Practices with at least 15 locations had higher DM scores of 30 and up to 70%. So if we underscore what you need to do is to stay on top of your DM score, and why it's important is even more critical post COVID-19. Mike, or could you move to the next slide, please? So why it's important. The COVID-19 is hitting you guys hard. I don't need to tell you that. More important than ever, you have to know your score. With the closures and consolidations, it's now more important than ever. Can you be found? So slide 9, please. So there are a few things you can do today to compete, and Jeff will be drilling down more into the specifics, but here are the kind of big 5 that we're looking to advise. you need to keep your website content uh, current with new keywords. Um, and so you'll want to make sure that you're using words on your website, including words like touchless dentistry, sanitization, PPE, air sanitizers, no waiting. You can, I'm sure that it's on the Solutionreach partner page, what words that they would recommend. Jeff can also specifically recommend, and so can our vetted agencies. They can recommend the specific keywords for you. You need to take those keywords and update your paid campaigns with the same keywords. We have a history function. We have a graph that you can access from the DM score page in Solutionreach. We have a graph that shows your scores in all of the key areas, and it's really interesting that the paid scores fell off the cliff in the last 3 or 4 months, and that makes total sense. But now it's time to re-engage with your paid campaigns, to re-engage those same keywords that we just talked about for your content. And then number 3, as I led the webinar off, it's critical that you just claim the directories, the business directories that you're in. That's a third key component in that makes up your DM score. Again, this is of the 54,000 practices that we're scoring. Number 4, it's super important for you to blog and take advantage of social media. You need to engage your local patients, and the blogging can be, from the heart, what you're doing, what your opinions are about COVID-19, the very specific things that you've done and you recommend, and just engage in a blog sort of way with your local community. You can have people come in, and you can feature their opinions on your blog. And then what you need to do is what I just said: capture your DM score, test, and repeat. We'll show you what your score was in each of these areas. We'll show you what your competition's score is in each of these areas. And it's not one and done. You can't just take a snapshot and say, my DM score is 42. My DM score in website is 71, because your competition is doing the same thing. Again, we have thousands of practices we have tens of thousands of practices that we're watching. So you have to stay on it. And our service is absolutely free. So you can go to the Solutionreach page and get your score, enter the name of your practice, and your score will come up. We give you, you have the opportunity to change all these things yourself, or we can recommend to you some vetted agencies that have had a great deal of success in doing these things. And so you can go to the site and get your score, and we'll connect you in our marketplace with a vetted agency. Okay, next slide, please. So what does this all mean? Why do you want to do this? Well, in my mind, it's pretty easy. You want to increase your patient base. You want to boost your revenues, and it's really super critical right now, as practices are opening up, as consolidation is happening, and as you're going to be given options as to do you want to continue your practice, or you might want to join other practices or start working with DSOs. So now is the critical time to increase your revenues, to build that patient base and the value of your practice. So the next slide, please. So as I've been saying through my presentation here. If you want to learn more, go to the Solutionreach Marketplace to find out more about DM Score. We have all this published and vetted research. Our board is very cool people from analytics background. You've heard my background. And you'll just want to watch what your score is and then make appropriate changes. So to be clear, we are objective like a FICO score. We provide a score for your digital footprint for you to optimize your digital marketing. So it's up to you. Is it up or is it out? So thank you very much for hearing my presentation. Go to on the screen right there. You can find out. You can read about these articles. I'd be happy to contact you personally if you want to get in touch with me. But that's where to find the articles, and that's also where to get your score. So I'll send my presentation back to you guys. There's my name, Rand, at dmscore.com, and you can see more information. And it's been a real honor and a pleasure speaking with you guys, and I know you're going to get a lot more great information from Jeff.
Thank you, Rand. Appreciate that. This is a great segue over to our next subject matter expert, Jeff Glodnick. So in 1999, Jeff's father, Dr. Mark Glodnick, asked me whether he needed to put his dental practice on the internet. And his first website went live a month or two later, and it worked out well for a long time. But a few years later, the website was outdated and needed a new look and functionality, and he received quotes of tens of thousands of dollars, and Jeff just decided to build his new website for free. So since he's from a family of 8 dentists, word spread, and soon his aunts and uncles all wanted sites as well. And he was working as a software engineer in Silicon Valley. He decided to use the same techniques he learned there and build a software to make it easy to manage all the sites easily and efficiently. And thus, Great Dental Websites was born. So flash forward 14 years, and Great Dental Websites is now supported by a staff of over 35 employees and has helped 900 practices worldwide. And their core mission is the same as it was from the beginning, which is to treat all of their clients just as they would treat their own family. So Jeff, we're super excited to have you here to teach our customers to build off of what Rand has presented here and take the reins here for us. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
Jeff,
that.
can you hear us?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Thanks for that introduction. You can go ahead to the next slide here. That's that first one, self-explanatory. There's a picture of my dad and what I presume is one of his favorite patients, my daughter, Claire. We've been like it was mentioned, we've been around for about 13, 14 years now. We don't have any long-term contracts. We try to earn everybody's business each month with success. And we've worked with over 800 practices, almost 900 now, through our offices in Denver and Sydney, Australia. You go ahead and hit the next slide. So this is this little graph kind of describes what we view as the new patient life cycle. So the idea is you want to have a website that's going to please both Google and patients. And when Google sees people clicking through to your website, that gives them signals that this is working. They update their search results to show your website more frequently. And then you get success breeds success. Hopefully there's some feedback loops coming in with perhaps Solutionreach requesting reviews on your site that'll help you win even more eyeballs there and help the Google score even more. So what can we do to improve upon this even further? Let's find out on the next slide. Just fire. You can fire through this. So yeah. So you know, I'm reticent to not mention COVID, and it's very important these days. And Google's made some accommodations to inform patients of what sort of infection prevention procedures you've been put in place for COVID mitigation. So hit the next slide, and there's a couple statistics out of Australia that I want to share with you guys. Most people are concerned about the economy, and there's not really much they're looking for here from their dental practice, but they are concerned about their health, and that's something you can address next. And what do they really want to know from you? Well, they want to be prepared and know what's going to go on. The new patient experience at a lot of practices we worked at, that's changed drastically. And it's important to share this and give people an idea, especially those with a dental phobia, what they should be expecting about when they come to their office, because it's going to be very different than their last appointment. Next. And for this case, brands is you, the dental practice. You know, what are you expected to do here? You need to inform and explain. And so how do we do this? Go to the next slide and we'll show you an example. So when everything went to you know where, back in March, we updated our platform to roll out these kind of warning notices, and a lot of dentists did something similar. And this is something that you should update regularly as conditions change in your market. I know some states have opened up and then closed again. Other states haven't quite opened up to the degree that others have. Some states never fully closed. So it's very confusing for consumers to know what's going on and how this applies. So it's important you tell them. So we would prefer a persistent message at the top of your website like this. And when you click into it, go to the next slide, you should come to a page that looks like this. And what we want to explain here is, you know, what you're doing to help them, to help maintain your patient safety as much as possible. Unfortunately, most dental practices already have really solid infection prevention controls in place. You just need to describe this. What was once boring is now super interesting to patients. And any additional steps or changes you made. I know we have a lot of offices doing like curbside check-in essentially, or moving the waiting room to the car parking lot. So if that's the case, you need to explain this to patients. You can even make a little new patient experience video to show people what it's going to be like. You pull up in the car, you may text the office or call them. They come out with a clipboard or an iPad for digital forms, or hopefully you've done that in advance. They call you. You might come through the emergency exit in the back of the building. Go right to the treatment room, take care of payments there, and then leave without ever seeing any other patients or minimal interaction with the rest of the staff. And that is what patients a lot of times want these days to minimize their exposure. Let's go to the next slide. And that's what you want to explain there. So make sure you're keeping this content up to date as conditions change in your market. Link to any relevant laws or health care authorities in your area. Make sure this is a prominent place. Don't bury this in just like a small link on the homepage. This is very important for patients, so make sure this is front and center and very easy to find. Let's go to the next slide. Keep going. And so in general, though, what do we need on a website for it to be successful? How do we convince Google that our website is the one that should be shown? Well, it's got to be very usable. It has to load quickly. Speed is a factor in how Google will rank a website. They do give more points to faster websites. And we want it to work on all devices. So if your website doesn't work on a mobile phone, just test it. Take out your mobile phone, and I'll show you what good looks like in a second. But we've got to have a good experience on a mobile phone. In many markets, the majority of searches are done on mobile devices. So if we're not dealing with the majority in some cases, we're really missing huge opportunities here. We want to have relevant on-page content. We want it to be unique too, and we want the layout to be very well constructed to convert visitors into patients. Let's go to the next slide. When we're writing content too, and you should have unique content, make sure it's scannable. And what I mean by that is use subheadings so people can quickly scan through what may be a long page. Google typically will want to see 400, 500 words of content on a page. That's a lot. And you don't want to hit people with this small, unformatted wall of text. Use bullet points where appropriate, and break up the section into paragraphs so people can find the section that they care about, because not everybody will read the entire thing. And very importantly, I see a lot of practices make this mistake. Talk about the benefits of the procedure. Don't talk about the medical details. No one wants to know how you're going to be drilling into their jaw to install an implant. They want to know how this is going to affect their life and their oral hygiene going forward. And always have clear calls to action. Let's take a look on the next slide. I think this is just the things to avoid. Don't plagiarize, and don't use words that may cause anxiety. So don't say drill, say shave. Don't say pain, say discomfort. These mean the same thing, but don't trigger an emotional reaction in the patient. And let's go to the next one. On the homepage, we like to see custom photography, preferably of the dentist or the practice. Video is fantastic, especially with that new patient experience I described. And you want calls to action wherever possible. Links to schedule or pay or frequently asked questions or contact the office. These need to be clear. Go to the next slide. Let's see an example of a landing page. So these landing pages have been specifically designed not to attract a general search for a dentist, but a specific type of service or procedure. This one, in this case, is for to attract searches for children's dentistry or pediatric dentistry in Temple, Texas. And so you can see we've broken it up into these different sections. So if you really care about, well, I get it, but what's my child's first experience going to be like? You can scroll down and see that very clearly, even from here. And the entire section is broken down like this. It just makes it much more approachable and easier to read. And there's enough content on here to please Google. We also have some relevant supporting content. So we have a testimonial video of what I presume is from a patient who brought their children there and had a great experience. That's ideally the type of testimonial you want to share on this page. And if it's about implants, you want it to be about somebody who got an implant and they had a great experience. FAQs and blog posts and before and after cases are a little tough here, but for cosmetic related landing pages, they're perfect. So think about those types of related content you want to have on your page. The worst mistake you can do is have all this wonderful content, but silo it on different sections. And we see this a lot. You go to a smile gallery, there's lots of great cases, but there's no descriptions about like what they actually did. Or maybe it'll just say like one word like veneers. But if you're on the veneers page, there's no connection to that. You have to go on the scavenger hunt through the website that few people will undertake in order to get a full picture of all the supporting content that might convince you to click one of those calls to action here and contact the practice and become a patient. So put everything in one place, or at least link to it in an intelligent way so patients see all the relevant information they need to make a decision, in this case, where to take their kids for a dentist in Temple. Let's go to the next slide. Same thing on new patient info is another example. Little buttons with to direct them to frequent needs here or frequently asked questions, insurance information. We want to have calls to action as far away as or spread out as much throughout the site as possible. We don't know at what point the patient will become convinced and ready to call you, but so give them every opportunity to do that when they become ready. Hit next. So we talked about mobile design a minute ago, and this is what good should look like. We want to have a persistent menu that follows you down the page. So if your menu disappears and you got to scroll all the way up with your thumb, you're just annoying people. Make sure it follows you down. Don't use a separate mobile website. This should be the same website on your same domain. This is what's called a mobile responsive website. That's the keyword you want to make sure you have or you're asking for when you're purchasing a dental website. We want to have a click to call button. We want to have a book now button or a schedule appointment button. And ideally, we want to have a link to bring up the maps in case somebody's driving to your office. We don't want them looking at their phone. We want to, or trying to cut and paste the address into their navigation. Let's give them the link they can just click and bring up the practice, as we see on the right, to get to the office as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And let's go to the next page. It's always important to think about what your unique value proposition is, and we work with dentists on every aspect of the spectrum here. And some dentists see themselves, or at least they used to before COVID, as a sort of dental spa-like experience where they bring out hot towels. Nowadays, that's probably crazy. Other places we're more focused on salt of the earth type of dentistry, bread and butter dentistry. Think about who you're trying to attract. What demographic are we going for? Families? Are we going for more denture specific cases and an elderly demographic? Make sure that the content speaks to that audience. Make sure that the imagery speaks to that audience, and it reflects the type of patients and people that you're trying to attract. Let's go to the next slide. Before and after cases are very valuable things to have in your case or on your website, but maybe not like this. We don't want to see blood, really disgusting cases, and having those cheek spreaders in there. They kind of look like medieval torture devices, kind of forcing people's mouths open, imploring them to confess to their sins. And every time I see one of these things, if you hit the next slide, I always remember that scene from The Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger is fighting that alien to the death and it takes its mask off. It's just a gruesome kind of sight. And if we're going to do before and after cases, I would highly encourage you to do it. Let's not make Predator images. Let's have something like this. This is perfect. We've we've kind of shown a more natural smile. We can still see that there's a drastic improvement in the patient's smile. We've cropped everything similarly, and make sure you're using your own work. And write an engaging description. Sometimes these individual before and after cases will rank on their own and show up in search results. And sometimes we don't get just one result for that landing page we just looked at. Sometimes we'll get 2 or 3 if we get lucky for one of these smile gallery items. Let's see what the next slide has in store for us. So to wrap up here, make sure our website's fully responsive and works on a mobile device. Make sure it's easy to navigate and has clear calls to action. So when patients are ready to contact you, they're going to be able to do it from any page. And make sure we're not siloing content. We're not sending people on a scavenger hunt to try to mentally piece together all the content that you want them to consume. Make it easy for them. There's a great graphic or user interface design book called Don't Make Me Think, and that should always be in the back of your head. If the patient has this mental challenge to try to find all the information that you need them to know to feel comfortable booking with you, that's ripe for a mistake. Let's make it easy for them. Make sure there's different ways to contact the office, whether that's online booking, a contact form, calling you, online chat. Give people different ways to contact you. They may not be able to call you if they're at work, although many people now are working from home. Let's see what's on the next slide. And of course, don't use a separate mobile website. Google doesn't like that. And don't assume that Google will know what your website's about. We need to make it very easy with subheadings. And Rand touched on this a little bit, doing some SEO optimization on your site to tune those pages for Google so they know exactly what your page about Invisalign is about. It's about Invisalign. You have to tell it and give them a hint. And let's go to the last slide, I think. And that's it. If you want to contact me, that's my email address, jeff@greatdentalwebsites.com, or just go to greatdentalwebsites.com, give us a ring, or fill out a contact form. If you'd like to speak to me, just ask for me, and somebody will get me in touch. Thanks a lot for listening. I appreciate Solutionreach for putting this on and having me.
Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Good stuff. We do have some time here for some Q&A. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so. So we'd like to bring Rand back in as well. We've got some questions for him. But yeah, Rand, let's start with you actually. One question that we've received is, how often should we be updating our website and other content with new keywords? And Jeff, you may have an opinion there as well. But let's start with Rand.
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. The more often, the better. One needs to build a framework of key keywords in your particular area, and there'll probably be 20 or 30 or 40 keywords. Jeff will be able to speak more specifically about what, as an agency, they would do. But you're going to want to look at those keywords, and you're going to want to utilize those keywords and adapt those keywords in the context of the world that's changing. So, for instance, if there's a COVID-19 vaccine, you're going to, or other things that are happening, you're going to want to make sure that you utilize those things on your site, that you blog about those things, and that they're integrated in your paid and social media programs. And I think Jeff can expand on that comment a little bit further.
The keywords we're typically working with clients to rank well for are typically the names of the services that they're offering, like Invisalign, and then the name of the city. Of course, the general primary terms like dentist in city, dentist near me, things like that. And 2030 is probably the meat of it. There's lots of additional keywords that come up, but they're more lower traffic. The amount of content we typically are trying to get clients to write or work with us to produce, usually we're asking for like an hour or so of time from the practice per month. And what we want them to do is upload raw meat for us. We want before and after cases with like some basic descriptions, and we can flower them up a bit. We want patient testimonial videos, videos of the dentist explaining individual procedures. If they get through all that and they have time to blog, that's great too. And we are entering I remember in the last presidential cycle, there's always some dental related news. I think it was Marco Rubio that bit his tooth on a frozen Twix bar. We had a client in Florida that blogged about it and ended up getting on the news. So you can kind of give your commentary on local or national news cases, and in some cases you may get some local publicity from that. If you have the time to do it, that's a great thing you can do to contribute to your marketing.
We're actually seeing the DM score being impacted on the search score by keeping current with the utilization of the right words in a post-COVID-19 environment. So you're going to want to make sure that you use some of those post-COVID-19 keywords, because practices are consolidating and patients are looking for new dentists. So you're going to want to make sure that you use those words.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of related to that, Rand, we just got another question about testing. So you mentioned testing. How long does it take a DM score to capture changes that a practice has made?
Yeah, that's a good question. To capture an SEO change, it will take about a couple of weeks until things get indexed. But once they get indexed, it happens more frequent than that. And again, we're capturing DM score data around paid directories and SEO and search, so that they're all being captured, analyzed, integrated, and reported on, and they change every couple of, I would say, no more frequently than 5 days, but no greater than 10 days.
Gotcha. And then Rand, one for you. It's a good question. How can the person said, how can I convince my dentist or owner that we need to take this seriously? You know, what can I do to wake them up? Any thoughts there in terms of you know, just trying to get everyone on the same page within the practice to realize how important you know, their website is?
Yeah, that's what we have been built for, that to answer that question. So
Okay.
I would recommend that they know what their DM score is first, and that you can show your dentist the competition of their DM score. That should be enough to convince them, and they can also see their DM score over time. So that's a great start. Maybe Jeff has some other.
Jeff, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, the internet is a source for potential new patients, and there's lots of ways you can attract new patients into your practice. But if you're not using the internet, it's just a missed opportunity. And a lot of times people will tell me that, oh, well, you know, I get all my patients from word of mouth, but I don't think they really understand how that works in a modern age. I live in a new development, or a relatively new development, and every month people move in at the end of the month when houses are built and closed on, and you see the same set of questions being asked on Facebook groups, in the mom groups, and moms, you know, make 92% of the healthcare decisions, and they're asking, where do I take my dog to a vet? Where do I take my kids to a pediatrician? And who do you guys like for a dentist? And there becomes this sort of referral contest in the comments, and people just start posting their website or the name of their dentist and tagging their Facebook profile. So you're going to be judged based on, you know, alongside 20 other dentists, based on how you look to them online. And it's not as simple as, you know, somebody out with their friends having coffee, which is even less likely these days. It's all happening online, especially now. And so if you don't have a good online presence, when you are referred by one of your patients, you will look more, you will come off more poorly than a dentist who is. And that's kind of the way that referrals work in our times, and the way that they worked even before COVID, and even more so now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Definitely, it's an extension of your brand for sure, whether you like it or not, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And sometimes the worst dentists have the best websites, but looks can be deceiving. It's better to look good.
Sure. Sure. And we have time for just one more question for each of you. One question that came in from Tracy is she asked, where can we get those keywords? So I think she's she's wondering where should she start to come up with a list of those keywords that should be on the home page. Either of you guys have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, for your homepage, the title, the meta title, and the description is what's important. There's another field called keywords, and if you view your source code and just look for the word title, it's a little tag. What you probably want on there is dentist and the name of the city or some variation of that. If you're a specialist, you want endodontist and the name of the city. If you're curious about this, you can just look for dentist and the name of your city, and the blue link that comes up at the top is the title that your competitors have used. So you can kind of look to them for some inspiration. On the other pages, you want it to be about the service. So it should be primarily designed to attract searches for Invisalign if you're on that page, or dental implants if you're on the dental implants page. And you want to kind of tune each individual page to attract the relevant search terms that page is about. And in most cases, it's going to be the services or a general search for a dentist or a specialist.
Yeah, we're finding, and after about 30 years in this business, we're finding that it may not be, maybe the best way to handle it is not do it yourself, but to contact an agency like Element IQ or like Great Dental Websites. We have a number of agencies that we can recommend that can do it for you, and then you can track their success with the DM score in each of the particular areas. Again, that's what DM score was designed for, is transparent, that you can share with the agency. You can see the agency's good work or not so good work, and it's a way for that you in the practice can communicate with the agency as to what your digital marketing footprint looks like at a local level. So but if you really want to spend time on your digital marketing, everybody's capable of doing that. So it's your choice. Have somebody else do it or do it yourself. But the information, as Jeff was covering, is out there. His agency and other agencies do a great job of optimizing your site and your new patients for you.
And specifically, what keywords in COVID should dental offices be thinking about?
What we're
I know
seeing.
you touched.
Do you want? I'm sorry. Was that Rand or Jeff?
Either one, both of you. Go ahead.
There's 4 or 5 keywords that we're seeing, like touchless dentistry, sanitization. Just use COVID-19, just the word COVID-19, and say, hey, we're up to date with all the latest and greatest COVID-19 recommendations, including bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3. As Jeff touched on, that we have touchless dentistry, that you're not going to be seated. So a keyword would be touchless. A keyword would be maybe parking lot. I don't know. You have to do some research as to exactly what those keywords are. But there are quite a few actually that are registering right now.
One thing we've seen is a general increase in searches related to questions around, is it safe to visit the dentist? So I would absolutely make sure you address those types of questions. You're probably already getting them, and your front desk is probably a good source for the types of questions that people are asking you over the phone. That's a good proxy to determine what people might be asking online too. So just make sure you're addressing that sort of need and having a COVID thing front and center. Another thing I would mention is Google has created a new field on their Google My Business page, which is kind of the crux of local search on Google, to have a telehealth link if you're doing that, or COVID-19 information. So if you haven't updated your Google My Business page in a while, since this all happened, there's probably some additional fields you can fill out, give you a little bit more points, and may check some boxes that consumers are looking for when they're trying to find a dentist.
That goes beyond Google. I mean, it goes to all of the directories. So you need to update your paid, your organic, your directories, and your blogging around all this stuff, and that will really help you attract new customers.
Awesome. Great stuff, guys. We're at time, but we're definitely going to send this recording out to each and every one of you. If you have any peers that missed it, they'll receive a recording. We're also going to store this on our customer community, which is community@solutionreach.com. So feel free to check it out there. Rand, Jeff, thank you again so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And we hope you all found some nuggets you could take back to your practice and apply. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks again.